Hello everyone. I just wanted to start this video off with a quick spoiler warning. I do use footage from the ending of Tears of the Kingdom around the 8-minute mark, but the rest of the video should be pretty spoiler free. I couldn't help myself but use some footage from the ending of that game. Anyway, thank you for being so patient. On with the video. How do you make a sequel to one of the greatest games of all time? When a sequel to Breath of the Wild was announced, I, like many other people, was excited but very skeptical. We praised Breath of the Wild for so many things, but mainly it was the first time Nintendo let us roam free and discover the world for ourselves. Not only did it mark a moment of maturation for Zelda, but Nintendo as well. Okay, alright. It has been 4 months since The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out. And I've beaten it since then, and I've had a lot of time to play it, and it has just continued to consume my life. It's never stopped since the moment I played it. I said that I was hesitant and skeptical about a sequel to Breath of the Wild being made because how do you recapture that same sense of discovery and creativity? The entire time I was playing Tears of the Kingdom, it felt like this is what my adolescence and all of my development years led up to, because Tears of the Kingdom is a brand new step for the series without being nostalgic. There are only echoes and footprints of past Zelda games in Tears of the Kingdom to remind you that yes, this is indeed a Zelda game. It plays on all of the feelings and emotions that I had when playing Zelda games growing up, which is odd because how can a Zelda game that looks like this remind me of a Zelda game that looks and plays like this?
Oh! Oh! Yeah! Still got it. Oh my god. Oh, jeez.
My arm really hurts after that. I don't know. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword was one of the first Zelda games that I got into. To fast forward 12 years later and to play a game like Tears of the Kingdom, I just cannot help but notice a lot of the DNA and the influence that Skyward Sword has over a game like Tears of the Kingdom. So why would Nintendo do this? Why would Nintendo take essentially the black sheep of the franchise? Why would they use that as the basis for their newest Zelda game, let alone a sequel to Breath of the Wild? Well, I don't know. I actually don't know the answer to that question. From the islands in the sky to the events that play out in the actual story, it's impossible not to feel like this is Nintendo's way of exposing a lot of their best ideas from Skyward Sword to an audience that might have not been listening before. I have thought about Skyward Sword on a consistent basis for the past 10 years. Why? I don't know. I still think about how moving that game's story is for me personally, and I think a lot. I used to fall asleep to the soundtrack like in middle school. I got the special edition Skyward Sword where it came with like the gold Wiimote. Skyward Sword also came packaged with like a special orchestrated CD, because it was the first time that they ever used a live orchestra for an entire Zelda game. Anyway, I have a lot of memories with Skyward Sword. Tears of the Kingdom cherry picks a lot of ideas and concepts that Skyward Sword had 12 years ago and just uses it all to make up a much better game. As much as I have a soft spot for Skyward Sword, trying to revisit it in 2023 was a lot harder than I thought. Holy Skyward Sword missed the mark 12 years ago, and it generated a lot of frustration, not just because it was a Zelda game. They used 100% motion controls, but also because it was the last Zelda game to really exhaust the linear and just very predictable gameplay format. So it kind of left us waiting for the next mainline Zelda game to come out, which would end up being for the Wii U, but some of us already know what happened to Zelda Wii U. I've already talked about Breath of the Wild at length on this channel and in real life, so I'll keep this brief. You don't have Breath of the Wild without the Wii U. Not just because it was a title originally meant for the Wii U, but the Wii U's lack of power is responsible for why Breath of the Wild turned out the way it did, instead of just being Tears of the Kingdom from the very start. You see, Eiji Aonuma, the current producer of the Legend of Zelda franchise, originally wanted stuff like underground digging and sky exploration to be integrated into Breath of the Wild, but that simply was out of the question because this was meant to be a Wii U game, and also because, well, the Wii U wasn't that powerful. But I guess that's okay, because what we got instead was pretty alright.
But there can only be one game of the year, so one last time, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
So how did they do it? How did they make a sequel to one of the greatest games of all time? Simply put, Tears of the Kingdom is not a sequel at all. Nintendo didn't seem interested in making a sequel to one of their greatest creations of all time. Instead, they chose to make The Final Draft, an entry that fully realizes the vision Nintendo initially had in mind with Breath of the Wild and Skyward Sword, while also representing their decades of trial and error with the series as a whole. When I first saw Link's new abilities of fusing items to sticks, jumping through ceilings, and building mechs, I wasn't quite sure what to think. But now, after letting Tears of the Kingdom consume my life for about half the year, I think I finally get it, and I realize that this is exactly the kind of game that can overwhelm a person who may be a completionist or has anxiety about seeing every last corner in an open world game. But Tears of the Kingdom does not require you to take advantage of everything it throws at you. Tears of the Kingdom is able to shape and mold to whatever kind of game you need from it at that very moment. You can use all the tools at your disposal to create whatever kind of weapons, contraptions, or vehicles that your mind can come up with. You can also completely ignore all the creative stuff and just run and climb everywhere. There's nothing stopping you from doing either. Nintendo has stated that they won't be developing any kind of DLC for Tears, and that's perfectly fine with me because I genuinely don't think this game needs it. This version of Hyrule, the Kingdom of the Wild, is already so vast and expansive as an open world, chock full of things to discover, islands to fly to, Koroks to find, and enemies to torture. I don't think Tears of the Kingdom renders any game in the franchise obsolete or not worth going back to, but something about the confidence of Tears of the Kingdom just screams, this is the kind of game we've been wanting to make all along.